make sure that the people of Ukraine are able to make decisions for themselves about their future.
Margaret Brennan is at the State Department, where officials are taking action against Ukraine's...
The unrest and the, what would you call it, disenfranchisement starts with individuals who have stories, simple stories, about politics in the workplace, sabotage, backstabbing, false police reports, creating financial problems for people, and people that are not as kind and, in fact, patient, perhaps even educated, etc., might be prone to acts of violence, expressions of violence, you could call it. And the more that grows, the more this kind of thing, thanks for changing the picture on me, could happen here. And so that's why, for all these years, I've tried to point out that to ignore my life and pretend that I don't matter because some piece of shit cop beat the shit out of me and no one cared, and I tried to tell the story to the point where even 20 years later, Jane Karsh is sabotaging my attempt to get past it and have a life, have a career as a yoga teacher. Such a simple dream, and to be denied that creates this frustration. I blogged about this a couple years ago when some guy, two co-workers at an Empire State Building business or something, there was talk of false police reports, and one guy shot another guy. And I think, and then a bunch of people got shot on the street by police just randomly shooting at anything that moved. And I just wrote for a moment to try to show sympathy towards this desperate person who was, I believe, in his 60s, was being evicted from his apartment, was being thrown out on the street, financially becoming homeless, losing his job, etc. And why is that so hard to understand, that you push people off the edge? Why does anyone act surprised? So, because I come at what happened to me, actually what I was going to say was, so I wrote about this in an obscure blog where at the time I was rarely using any names except for Jane's because she's an evil enemy. Anyone that threatens me with police is on the list of no rules, by the way. And anyway, this is a couple years ago, so suddenly, just for writing that what did I say? I was basically showing sympathy for the bad guy, that they kept saying nobody was claiming his body, and people enjoy this shit. And so for writing about that, a few weeks later, it might have even been a month later, suddenly, it was a combination of Lynn Whitlow, who I never realized went to Othning High School, which is amazing, came to town to do a workshop at Jane's Bikram Yorktown studio, and I sent an email to Lynn, who I had met at my training, who had helped me very much, and we were friendly enough. And I said to her, isn't it ironic that, you would spend, I didn't spend $10,000. I got a scholarship and people helped me out, but still it's a $10,000 investment. And such a simple career. My health was unbelievably phenomenal. And I was just happy to to move on with my life, but then I couldn't because of the shit that Jane spread about me. So a few years later, here we are, all this stuff has happened, and I wrote to Lynn, isn't it ironic that if I were to show up to say hello to you, I would be arrested? Like, is it really hard for people, so hard to make that connection between, say, what's happening in the Ukraine and, just a general injustice that I was trying to point out. And so I remember sending that email around the same time that I'd written this blog. It was in like July, August, and then September comes, and suddenly I have police at my door. No contact with Jane in years. Never. Since I last saw her ugly face when I was her first student. I was the first student in Bikram, Yorktown. The very first. And I don't contact her at all. And yet she filed in 2006, and December 2006 and August 2007, filed 2 completely false police reports that made her look like a jerk. And then when I showed them to Bikram, she accused me of altering the police report. I mean, it doesn't end. These liars, whether they pay $4,000 a month at some foofy studio or they're crackheads in my building, most people lie. Full of shit liars. This is where poverty comes from. But wait, back to the point. I had to endure police coming to my door in front of my neighbors, not the first time, in the past 10, 12, however many years I've lived here. And they were relaying a message from, I guess Jane had called the Yorktown police, who had called the Peekskill police, and the cop came up to me, and it's funny because I was outside with a couple of the neighbors, and we're watching this cop like go inside. We're like, oh, I wonder what's happening. I had no idea. And then a guy goes inside and he comes out and he goes, he's looking for you. And I was like, really? So I walk over to him and he's like, oh yeah, did you write this essay about how you understand why someone would want to shoot somebody? And I mean, I did say in this sentence that, something about a fantasy of, not a fantasy, but just I would understand this desire to just want to, like, in your imagination, you would want to kill someone that has hurt you so badly. And it's just an expression that people don't say things like this out loud, but everybody feels it, in anger. And to actually act on it is quite another thing, obviously. But the point is, it was months, weeks before that I had written something, and I have cops coming to my door to make sure that I'm not dangerous. But if I tell the cops, and not only tell the cops, but have videotape of my neighbor saying the words, quote, I threatened, he'd said, I will bash you and your dog's head in, and then I turned on my recorder and got him to admit that he'd said it. But I have proof of that. On the recording, I have him saying, next time I go to jail, it's going to be for murder. And that was just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And just after that, or it was actually the same day or before after that, it was somebody's going to get a beating. And this is all over snow and parking and just stupid neighbor stuff. Well, that's what the catalyst is. But I mean, I have been filming this guy, with his little crack operation, with his fucking prostitutes in and out of here, which I am a live and let person. I'm not going around trying to, like, snitch on people. But when this 6'5", former felon who brags about how it was for beating up women, when I've heard some of these conversation goes on like this, I mean, I'm not going to live like this. And then I hear him telling Robin Bowles how hard it is to live with me because I'm filming him and his antics. And he has the nerve to say people are prejudiced in, I think, North Carolina or something. Nobody wants scum like him around. And for Robin to facilitate this, it's unbelievable. And the police drive away, do nothing. But with me,